My sister got married to the man who used to tease me for being adopted. He toasted that I was proof blood doesn't always matter while everyone laughed. I didn't laugh. I just handed him a box I'd saved for 10 years. The best man dropped his drink. My sister's smile vanished. And by the time I got home that night, my cousin was texting me. I grew up in upstate New York, in Ithaca. Beautiful place, hilly, quiet, full of smart people and cold winters. I was adopted when I was 3 years old. My parents, Richard and Melina Jeffries, had been trying for a baby for years and had lost a son shortly after birth. They were devastated. My adoption was the start of their healing, or so I was always told. 2 years after I came into their lives, my mom got pregnant. A literal miracle baby, according to every family member. That's how my sister Lauren came to be. And that's when everything started to change. Lauren, now 30 female, was adored. Not just by my parents, but by everyone. Neighbors, extended family, teachers, she was golden. I was the first, but I was always second. You'd think, growing up, we would have been close. Sisters. Best friends, even. But we weren't. From a young age, Lauren made it clear that I wasn't like her. She had my mom's laugh, my dad's eyes, their last name from birth. I had questions. I had thick curly hair and skin that tanned in the sun while everyone else burned. I was from someone else's story. And it wasn't just her. It was her best friend's older brother, Zachary Blake. I can't write his name without feeling something tight in my stomach. He was a few years older than us, lanky back then, always at our house because his sister Marin and Lauren were inseparable from age 6 onward. Zach took an interest in me, but not in a good way. He started teasing me early, before I even understood what he meant. When I was about 9, he looked at my school project, a paper plate family tree we had to make in class, and laughed. "You should have just glued on a question mark for your real mom." Lauren laughed. And that became the pattern. Zach would say something awful, I'd try to hold it together, and Lauren would giggle and go along with it. At 10, he called me the bonus child. At 12, the pick-and-pull sister. And when I was 14, I overheard him tell a group of his friends at our house that I was basically an exchange student they forgot to return. I wish I could say I stood up for myself. But I didn't. I was a kid. I internalized all of it. My parents didn't know half of what he said, and when I did tell them, they dismissed it as kids being kids. "Don't let it get to you," my dad once said. "He's just teasing." But it got to me. I carried it like a stone in my chest for years. By the time I was in college, I barely came home. I went to SUNY Binghamton, studied child psychology, and became a school counselor. I wanted to help kids who felt invisible, who were always the other one. Lauren stayed close to home, went to Syracuse University, and turned into a polished, stylish young woman who thrived on attention. We saw each other for holidays, birthdays. Always cordial. Never close. And then in 2015, everything changed. I came home for Thanksgiving. It was one of those chaotic family gatherings where the wine is cheap, the food is dry, and everyone's pretending they haven't been fighting behind the scenes. I showed up late because I had to work a morning shift. When I walked into the living room, my mom jumped up to greet me. And there she was, Lauren, on the couch, holding hands with someone. It was Zach. I froze. My mother said, "Surprise." Lauren looked smug. Zach looked pleased. "You remember Zach, don't you?" Lauren asked. I nodded. I didn't trust myself to speak. Dinner was surreal. My mom couldn't stop talking about how grown-up Zach was. My dad, who never really had strong opinions on much beyond fishing and local politics, seemed indifferent. But me? I was barely chewing my food. Every time Zach looked at me, I felt myself shrink inside. After dinner, I went into the kitchen to help clean up. Zach came in, leaned against the counter, and said, "Still playing the good guest, huh?" It was such a simple sentence, but the way he said it, it was like time collapsed and I was 13 again, trying not to cry in the hallway after he'd called me discount family in front of Lauren's friends. I didn't reply. I left early. That was the first time they were official in front of the family. Over the next few months, Lauren brought him to every event. My parents welcomed him with open arms. My mom used to say, "It's so sweet, they've known each other their whole lives." As if that erased everything. In 2017, they moved in together. I was invited to their apartment once. I didn't go. I started avoiding family holidays, working extra shifts, and coming up with excuses. Lauren never called me, never texted unless it was a group chat for Mom's birthday or Thanksgiving planning. But I never forgot. And I never let go of what I'd been collecting. When I was 24, I had accidentally been CC'd on an email Zach was meant to send only to a friend. It included screenshots from some private group chat where he and his friends were laughing about me, calling me the house pet and adoption agency sampler platter. I printed it. I still don't know why. Something told me it was important. After that, I began keeping things, notes Lauren wrote mocking me in middle school that I'd found cleaning out the garage, an old voicemail where Zach drunkenly called me a Make-A-Wish child during a 4th of July party, even some copies of receipts I'd found where my parents spent thousands on Lauren's extracurriculars but barely paid for my college books. I put them all in a box. A shoebox. I taped it shut and wrote just in case on top. I forgot about it for a while. Until their engagement. They got engaged in late 2022. My mom called me with tears in her eyes, saying, "Can you believe it?" It's like everything came full circle. And I thought, no. It's like the nightmare circled back around. When Lauren invited me to the wedding, I said I'd think about it. She called and asked me point blank if I was going to make it about me. I said, "Don't worry. I'll be quiet." And I was. Until the reception. The wedding was in Skaneateles, one of those picture-perfect towns near the Finger Lakes that looks like it was designed for wedding brochures. Early June, sun shining, the lake in the background, flowers everywhere. My mother was practically floating as she ushered people around, acting like a society matron. Lauren wore a strapless satin gown that probably cost more than my car. And Zach? He wore a white tux jacket with a black bow tie, looking like a man who thought he deserved to be the center of every room. I showed up just before the ceremony. I didn't speak to anyone except my cousin Ava, who was always the black sheep of the family like me, and my uncle Alton who mostly just nodded and smiled. I stayed quiet. I smiled at the photos. I even stood next to Lauren in one of the staged sibling shots while the photographer told us to act like you love each other. I played the part. I didn't say a word. But the box was in my handbag. Not a shoebox anymore, I'd repacked the contents in a clean, crisp, cream-colored gift box. No bow. Just a label, for Zach. I thought about giving it to him before the ceremony. I didn't. I wasn't going to ruin her day. I was going to wait for him to ruin it himself. Which he did. The reception was held at this huge vineyard just outside town. Everything was classy. Live jazz band, string lights, expensive wine, napkins that probably cost more than my kitchen towels. I stayed mostly at the edge of the party, drinking ginger ale and watching the whole thing unfold like it was someone else's life. Then came the speeches. Lauren's best friend, Marin, made a sweet, syrupy speech about how Zach and Lauren had been meant to be since forever. People awed. Glasses clinked. Then Zach stood up. He held his champagne glass like it was an Oscar and gave a big, charismatic smile. He looked at Lauren, then at the guests. "I want to thank everyone here today," he began. "We're so grateful. I've known this family almost my whole life, and it means the world to be officially part of it." People clapped. My mother dabbed her eyes. Then he looked at me. "And honestly," he said, with a grin that had haunted me for most of my childhood, "this family is proof that blood isn't everything." I froze. He continued, "Just look at Sarah. She's living proof that you don't need to be blood to be family. That adoption works, even if it's kind of like getting a clearance item, you don't always know what you're gonna get, but sometimes it sticks." People laughed. Laughed. My uncle nearly spat his wine. The bridesmaids giggled. Even my father smiled, awkwardly, but still. I didn't laugh. I stood up. I didn't say anything. I just walked over to him, as calm as I've ever been. His glass was still raised, and he looked at me like I was being overly dramatic. I reached into my handbag and pulled out the box. "For you," I said. He looked confused, but he took it. He made a joke, something like, "Well, look at this, presents already?" But the moment he opened the lid, the color drained from his face. The first thing on top was the printed email from 10 years ago. His best man leaned over to peek inside, and I watched the blood drain from his face too. Then Zach started flipping through. There was the voicemail transcript. A printout from the group chat. Handwritten notes from Lauren when she was a teen, laughing about how I wasn't really her sister. There was even a scanned copy of the college tuition invoices that showed the giant financial gap between what my parents paid for me versus Lauren. He kept flipping, faster now, like the faster he got through it, the faster it would go away. It didn't. The room started to quiet. The best man dropped his drink. It shattered. My mom's hand shot up to her mouth. Lauren stared at me, like she couldn't quite process what was happening. I leaned in and said softly to Zach, just loud enough for a few nearby people to hear, 10 years worth. I thought you might want to remember who you married, and who you humiliated. Then I turned and walked away. No shouting. No drama. Just quiet, complete, irreversible exposure. The last thing I heard before I got to the door was Lauren's voice, sharp and panicked, "What the hell is this?" I didn't look back. I didn't wait to see who followed me. I drove home in silence, windows down, wind in my hair. The first text came before I even turned onto the highway. It was from my cousin Ava, holy sh*T. You really brought the receipts. Uncle Alton just said well damn out loud. Your mom looks like she's about to pass out. Zach ran out. Lauren's crying in the bridal suite. I'll call you tomorrow. Another came 10 minutes later. You okay? Also, can I buy you a drink next weekend? You just burned down the whole vineyard. I turned my phone off. Not out of anger. Just, peace. The next morning, I woke up to 23 missed calls, 17 voicemails, and so many texts my phone froze trying to load them all. My parents. Lauren. Some random aunts I hadn't spoken to in years. Even Marin. I didn't answer any of them. I made coffee, took a long shower, and sat on my couch wrapped in a blanket like I'd just survived a natural disaster, which, in a way, I had. A decades-long emotional earthquake that finally erupted in one evening. By the time I turned my phone back on later that afternoon, the messages were still coming. Lauren had texted, "You selfish, vindictive B***TCH. You couldn't let me have one day." And then a few minutes later, I don't even know what any of that was. You clearly made half of it up. Followed by, "You're dead to me. Don't come near me or my life again." Then silence. I think she realized that the last one might have crossed a line, even for her. Marin texted something long and meandering about how it's not the time or the place to bring up ancient drama, and Zach has grown, and you made everyone uncomfortable. She ended with, "I thought we were friends." We weren't. My mom finally left me a voicemail at 6 p.m. that Sunday. She was crying. Not sobbing. Just doing that tight-throated, breathless, controlled sort of crying that makes you feel like a criminal. "I don't know why you did this," she said. "But it was cruel. And you didn't just hurt Lauren. You embarrassed your father. You embarrassed me. You could have told us. We could have handled this differently. But now you've broken this family." Click. No acknowledgement of the content of the box. Just the reaction to it. Typical. I didn't reply. The only person I did respond to was Ava. She called me that evening, laughing breathlessly. "Girl," she said, "I have never, ever seen a wedding go sideways so fast. That DJ didn't even pack up, he just straight up left. And the cake? They never even cut it." I asked her what happened after I left. She told me Lauren lost it in front of everyone. Started shouting at Zach, demanding he explain. He tried to claim it was old jokes and taken out of context. Ava said he actually used the phrase, "We were just being guys." That made Lauren even angrier. Then came the kicker. Ava said Lauren's college roommate, who was also a bridesmaid, pulled Lauren aside and confessed that Zach had hit on her multiple times during their engagement. With screenshots. Apparently, the box had been the crack in the dam. And once it split, everything else started flooding out. Lauren left the reception in her dress, heels in hand, crying hysterically. Zach tried to follow her, but someone, Ava thinks it was Uncle Alton, stopped him and told him to sit down and take the L. I don't know why that detail made me laugh, but it did. Ava asked me, gently, "So, what now?" I told her I didn't know. Because I didn't. I went to work on Monday like normal. My coworkers had no idea what kind of firestorm was going on in my personal life. I sat through student evaluations, parent meetings, and lunch duty like it was just another week. But I kept my phone on silent, and every time I passed a reflective surface, I noticed something new in my expression: calm. I think I was waiting for guilt to come. It didn't. Not in the way they probably expected it to. What I felt wasn't guilt, it was grief. Not for what I had done, but for all the years I let myself be invisible. All the versions of me that swallowed things down, who kept the peace, who played nice for the sake of a family that never really protected me. Those versions were gone. My dad called on Wednesday. Just once. No voicemail. I didn't pick up. He finally sent a short text: "I don't know how to talk to you right now. I hope you're okay." It was the closest thing to acknowledgement I got from either parent. And still, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about what had been said or done to me for years. It was just concern for how I was taking their disappointment. Later that week, Ava sent me a photo someone had taken at the wedding, mid-toast, just seconds before I stood up. Zach was grinning, raising his glass. Lauren was laughing with her head thrown back. I was in the background, looking directly at him, with a neutral expression and my hand on the strap of my handbag. I looked composed. Too composed. It scared me a little. But what scared me more was how many years I'd looked like that, quiet, blank, just enduring. Ava asked if I wanted to go out for drinks that weekend, and I said yes. I hadn't been out in a long time. We went to a small place in downtown Binghamton. A quiet bar with live music and soft lighting. She bought me a whiskey sour and raised her glass. To finally put the garbage out. We laughed. I drank. It felt light. That night, I told her something I hadn't told anyone before. When I first got that email with Zach's comments 10 years ago, I'd cried for hours. Not because it was new, but because it confirmed what I'd always feared, that the way I felt growing up wasn't in my head. That I had been treated differently. That the snide comments weren't just childish teasing, they were a reflection of how some people saw me, even as I tried so hard to belong. And I told her, too, that the worst part wasn't Zach. It was Lauren. Because she knew. She saw it all. She laughed. She never stood up for me. She treated me like a rival in a house where we could have been allies. She never protected me. And even as adults, she never once said, "Hey, I'm sorry he was like that to you." That silence is louder than any insult. Ava didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said, "You should write this down." So I am. I don't know where this goes yet. There's more coming, I'm sure. I've heard through the grapevine that Lauren isn't staying at their apartment. That she's staying with my parents. That they've told neighbors there was a family misunderstanding. But I haven't heard from her directly since her last text. And I have no plans to reach out. Because for the first time, the silence belongs to me. A week after the wedding, I got a handwritten letter in the mail. Not an email, not a text, not a voicemail. A letter. From my father. The handwriting was his, careful, tidy block letters that had once helped me trace words in workbooks as a kid. It was written on the back of a folded piece of my mother's old stationery. The kind with the embossed border she only brought out for sympathy cards. Inside, it said, "Sarah, your mother doesn't know I'm writing to you. I don't agree with how things were handled. I don't agree with everything you've done either, but I understand now that you've been holding on to a lot more than we realized. I want to talk. If you're willing. If not, I won't push." Dad, I set the letter down and stared at it for a long time. I didn't cry. I didn't feel relieved. I just felt exhausted. I wasn't ready to talk to him. Not yet. But I appreciated that, for once, he wasn't trying to pretend none of it happened. That was new. Over the next few weeks, the gossip from the wedding started to reach further corners of the family. I didn't spread anything. I didn't need to. Ava said that someone from the groom's side, probably one of Zach's groomsmen, had shared parts of the box online, or at least told enough people that someone's cousin's friend now had access to screenshots. Zach's employer, a financial consulting firm in Albany, apparently had a very strict social conduct policy. I'm not sure if he was fired or asked to leave, but Ava said he was no longer with the company by the end of the month. I didn't gloat. But I did sleep better. Lauren, meanwhile, had gone full scorched earth. She scrubbed her social media of all wedding photos, unfollowed half the family, and reportedly moved back in with my parents for a break. There were rumors that the annulment paperwork had been filed. Whether she was too embarrassed to stay or had realized who she'd actually married, I didn't care. I wasn't part of it anymore. And I didn't want to be. What surprised me was who did start reaching out. My dad's sister, Aunt Rosalie, the same one who once called me Melina's charity case when she thought I was out of earshot, sent me a fruit basket and a note that just said, "I didn't know. I should have. I'm sorry." I almost threw it out, but then I realized something: people were learning. Maybe slowly, maybe too late, but they were learning that staying silent about mistreatment doesn't protect anyone. It just feeds the people who get away with it. My mother? She still hadn't spoken to me. Not a word. Which hurt, in the quiet, persistent way that only a mother's silence can hurt. But I wasn't chasing her anymore. The next satisfying moment came a month later, when Ava invited me to a small family barbecue at her place. I almost said no, I didn't want the drama. But she promised it would just be the cool half of the family, and to be honest, I missed being around people who didn't make me feel like an intruder in my own life. So I went. And that's when the final piece of the puzzle slid into place. Because there, sitting in a lawn chair with a paper plate full of ribs, was my old high school friend Daria. I hadn't seen her in nearly 10 years. We hugged, caught up, and laughed about how weird it was to be the grown-ups at a party now. Then she leaned in and said, "I saw that wedding thing." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "The toast. The box. The walkout. It's all over that private wedding drama subreddit." They didn't name names, but girl, I recognized the lakefront venue from the photos. "And your sister's dress." She pulled out her phone and showed me. There it was. A thread titled, "Bride's Sister Destroys Groom During Wedding Toast with a 10-Year Revenge Box, Best Man Dropped His Drink." Over 40,000 upvotes. Hundreds of comments. People were calling it the classiest takedown ever. Someone wrote, "This is why you never underestimate the quiet one." Another said, "She gave them years to make it right. They didn't. So she made it unforgettable." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my drink. No names. No photos of me. Just enough for those who knew, to know. But the satisfaction wasn't from the virality. It was from something deeper, something that had lived inside me since I was a child, clutching a paper family tree and wondering why I didn't quite belong. I had been seen. And not in the way they used to see me, the adopted one, the stray, the bonus kid. No. This time, I was the one who drew the lines. That night, I got a final text from Lauren. "I hope you feel better about yourself. Because now I'm the one people whisper about. I'm the one who has to explain things. I'm the one humiliated." I stared at it for a minute, then typed back, "You're not humiliated because of me. You're humiliated because of what you chose to ignore for 20 years. And I hit send. That was the last message we ever exchanged. Since then, things have changed more than I thought possible. I took a short sabbatical from work. Ava and I started hosting monthly dinner nights, just us and a few friends who get it. I've been reconnecting with people I lost touch with, including Daria. We even joked about starting a podcast for people with golden child siblings and smile and ignore it parents. Therapy continues. But it feels less like survival now, and more like expansion. Like I'm not trying to keep my head above water, but learning how to swim towards something that's mine. And the box? I still have it. Not because I need it anymore. But because it reminds me of something powerful, that sometimes the best revenge isn't loud, cruel, or explosive. Sometimes the best revenge is the truth. Delivered plainly. And left to speak for itself. And I've never spoken louder.